Good evening and welcome to what is now the 27th episode of Overdose and Chill. We are joined today by Kevin Small from BGA Media Group. Hey, Kevin.
How are you, Andrew?
Kevin, who is out of, as they say in the South, right? You're out of Miami? Is that what they say? I was actually down, I'd say near your neck of the woods this past weekend. I was in Savannah, Georgia, getting married. So I was married on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and I came back just for this. This was the highlight of my week.
Cool.
Drove back up. Actually, got back yesterday, and realized how cold it is up here in New York. So, thanks for joining. Anyone who is watching, listening, by all means, any questions pop up, please do drop them in the chat, and we'll address them as they come up. So, welcome. So I guess first off, we don't know each other very well. We've chatted a few times. It's a bit different for me. Normally when I have these chats, I know the people pretty well, so I kind of know what's coming. So let's dive right into it. First off, I'd love to understand a little bit about your background, where you come from, how you got to where you are today, and what you're doing these days.
So thank you. I kind of stumbled into what I'm doing today, at least the today version of today, in the last 3 to 4 years. It was given the rise of e-commerce. I was talking about transactional sites for years and years and years. I think people only started listening heavily over the last couple of years. Today, I basically cover luxury, beauty, fashion, apparel, accessories, alcohol. As you can see from my background, a lot of alcohol.
That's that time of day, I suppose, right?
Yeah, well, whether it's selling a sweater online or selling a bottle of Costa Dragonis online, whatever your preference is, tactically it's the same thing, right? Different days. So, my day-to-day is spent both coaching CEOs and helping brands figure out ways of improving their conversion, improving their whole customer journey, figuring out where the deficiencies are. So it's kind of a different challenge every day. I have about close to $1 billion right now in e-commerce brands active.
Wow.
In my portfolio. So it's a little bit stressful, but it's the same thing every day. So I'm only as good as the partners that I work with. So definitely happy to have Overdose as one of our partners.
Appreciate that.
And because the greatest strategy in the world is nothing without be able to, the client's ability to execute and afford to be able to execute on it. Right. So
it's funny you said that the whole selling online is selling online. We've been saying that for years, and oftentimes when we speak with a merchant and they're very specific about, well, do you have experience in this vertical? They sort of say, yeah, well, there are some nuances, right? And you talk about the marketing piece of it and some customer behavior. When it comes to the brass tacks of e-commerce, it's relatively limited, right? You've got zeros and ones, and you can sell online. So it's funny that you said that.
And it's largely gone Shopify. I mean, I used to do a ton of Magento, Salesforce, although I partner with, we do these types of integrations today. It's largely Shopify Plus.
Yeah.
For anybody sort of from 10 to 100 million, it's very viable. And you find yourself out of the boiler room, right, of e-commerce and more into the fun tactical marketing, parts of e-commerce.
Well, it's certainly a different support sort of retainer model for SaaS, right? You're doing different things for merchants, and certainly need to diversify into the digital marketing piece and the SEO and search and data analytics part of it. And you referenced Shopify Plus, and just speaking of SaaS platforms, we're speaking with folks in Europe, and there's currently a pretty big challenge there, where there's a mandate that any European-based entity needs to use an entirely European-based hosting for any SaaS product. And most of our partners out there don't have that dedicated European soil hosting. These are GDPR and data regulation security reasons, but sort of the challenge there. One of the biggest things that we're always looking at we speak with merchants and hopefully when they become clients of ours is making sure we have the right fit, right? That there's a lot of agencies out there that can do what we do on a technical level. And we start thinking about who we want to work with. When you work with sort of someone like you or someone like us, this is not a 2-week, 3-week thing. This is 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's a long-term, it's a relationship. So I'm curious, how do you sort of go through and vet and decide on the opportunities that you want to engage with?
I'm fortunate today, and it was different, a couple of years, 5 years ago, that I'm able to I don't solicit business. I'm brought in pretty much exclusively either by private equity or venture cap to fix a problem. I do not work with brands that don't have problems, although every brand has a problem. I don't think any brand would say they're completely crushing it and they don't need help. But I'm typically brought in to fix a problem, to evaluate a stack, to find deficiencies, and to grow a brand in general. So it's either that or it's a straight up referral. I don't really actively solicit. Now on my vendor side, it's different because I'm somewhat formulaic, right? Like I'm referring in the same pre-vetted, they're teams that I've worked with for years, so I know if it's Shopify and they're looking for a review solution, it's going to be these 2 or 3, players. And my relationships with those players are typically at the C-level or owner level. So the pricing that I get for my clients directly, and the vendors contract directly with the clients, that's sort of the model, is that's sort of the value add that I'm bringing you client, amazing pricing and the trusted relationship. And it is all about that trust. And you and I talked about on one of our other calls, playing nice in the proverbial sandbox. I'm a firm believer in siloed expertise. I don't think there's one shop that does everything and everything really well. There's certain people that do a lot of things really well, and that's great. And you could have that part of the business, but I think it's best to have real experts in every single category. And a lot of my teams that work with each other, vendors or technologies, they all know each other, so I'm only dealing in sort of like a certain echelon of technology and technology partners. And it's great because these relationships last a very long time. Nobody's throwing each other under the bus. Everybody's working for the collective good to see the client's, conversion lift. So that's sort of the formula.
No, amen to that. I think one of the things I always talk about when we're sort of speaking in the ecosystem is, in my head, I've got sort of these 4 tick boxes. One is there chemistry? Do you like us and do we like you? Because without that, it's just life's too short to not love what you do and love who you do it with. Yeah. 2 is sort of, do we believe in the brand? Do we think that the brand's got legs and its growth potential? 3 is, do we believe in the people behind that brand? And 4 is, do we think we can help them grow? And if those sort of criteria are met, whether you're a startup doing nothing online or doing an enterprise doing $100 million online, it's all the same to us. So I'm sort of curious when you talk about you're getting a lot of inbound folks, but you still need to go through and vet who you want to work with. And when you say that they all come to you because they've got problems. I'm curious, without being brand specific, what sort of problems are you seeing merchants encountering? And when you go, and I said, I guess the other part of that is when you go and start doing some discovery here, what do you look at first? Is it the brand? Is it the team? Is it the tech stack? Like, how are you evaluating what the problems are, and then what path you might go down to try and address them?
I've been a little bit lucky in that a lot of the brands that have come to me, the product's great. Either it's a heritage product for certain brands. I have a brand that I work with, a 107-year-old brand, right? So super, has every bit of brand that you could need and super viable. I had another brand that came to me 4 years ago, having an existing business that was wholesale retail, but wanted to get into DTC, but successful in their own right and had an amazing USP. So I don't, I've been lucky to the extent that the product has always been great. Of course, I do my checking and I do my research and I'm going to see is this thing sellable? But I haven't necessarily run across that challenge yet. Especially, you know, I was thinking in the alcohol space, like it's not that one cannot sell Johnny Walker online. The question is, how do you sell a lot of it? How do you know, so it's always, the problems are different. In the last 2 years, I've done a ton of migrations, Magento to Shopify, Salesforce to Shop, you know, like lots of different replatformings. And if you've been involved with those, which I'm sure Overdose has, you know they're a nightmare if it's not done right, and you got to check every single box.
Yep.
And so many of them that I've come into, you're like, oh, you know, you did it, and all of a sudden, like SEO is totally tanked. And why didn't they do a migration audit? And why didn't they, you know, kind of, so I've come across that. I've seen brands, you know, less so now, but, you know, totally ignore the fact that their traffic is leaning towards mobile, and they're focused so heavily on this desktop experience when it's like 60 to 70% mobile. I think sometimes brands get very close too close to, you know, for comfort to the experience, and they can't look outside objectively at what might be wrong. I'm dealing with a little bit now with that with a new client. Amazing product, but very close to it. And you know, for me, my every day, I probably say the word friction like 100 times, right? Because it's all about that, whether it's friction, you know, from the navigation, friction, the path to purchase, friction on the PDP, like wherever there's a friction point, that's the problem pretty much that I'm trying to solve, like, and how to eliminate that. But it's, you know, sort of case by case.
I'm curious, in a world in which there is a fast growing segment of, let's say, restricted products, whether it's alcohol, CBD, cannabis, what have you, and the constraints therein when it comes to advertising on Facebook or on Snapchat or otherwise. What are you seeing in sort of the alcohol space that are the biggest challenges merchants are facing, whether it's a merchant that used to be B2B and they're trying to diversify and go B2C, or direct to consumer, I should say D2C, or they are looking to engage in subscription when it comes to fulfillment? Like what are, you know, in the beverage and alcohol space, what's the sort of general picture of the market right now?
It's been a revolutionary year, right, for alcohol online. Reserve Bar is one of the brands that I work with. That's probably one of the preeminent pure player in alcohol online, e-commerce for alcohol, working with every major supplier out there, from Diageo, Beam Suntory, Brown-Forman, Bacardi, Moet Hennessy. The challenge has been, up until this point, for alcohol online, is that it just wasn't really that known that you could buy and ship to your, I mean, believe it or not, it wasn't a thing. When the pandemic hit, this company accelerated, like, you know, incredibly, because we were the only, you know, we and a handful of other pure players were the only games in town to get your liquid, you know, so it forced user adoption. But at like, it's 7 years in the future, you know, of in terms of the adoption curve, right? So now that was their biggest barrier to solve. Like, how do you tell enough people that this exists? Well, now everybody knows full well that it exists. The challenge for alcohol is time. If you want, you know, unlike some other products, if you're looking to get a bottle of whatever, a lot of times the immediacy is super important. If you're having a party tonight, or you're sending, you know, but if you can wait for it, and people have certainly got accustomed this year with every e-commerce business to wait for it, right? Like the supply chain, not just with all, it was messed up. So, you know, people are just changing their buying behavior. And, you know, we were seeing, instead of single bottles, if you love a particular type of tequila, you might buy 3 and you're going to stock up, pantry loading, right? So same behavior that we saw for toilet paper, right? Online. We're buying products that they love now and stocking up and timing their buy cycles. So that was amazing, I think, for the alcohol business. And we got into, you know, other stuff. We got into direct, you know, it's direct response, direct mail, and catalog has been absolutely huge, you know, for all the apparel brands that I work with.
So sorry, let me interrupt you there for 1 second. So when you're saying direct mailers, catalogs, print media, is this a pivot back toward print media because people are home and COVID and they're looking, they're just getting back to the basics? Or what do you see?
It started a few years ago, and the mailbox has become relatively uncluttered.
Okay.
Now, for I had a few some props here, but this is one of my clients' naked cashmere. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful product, right? And started doing direct mail through a partner, Belardi Wong, who's an amazing, probably the best in the business. And this, believe it or not, goes directly from looking at this image to, finding that product on the site and buying. It's all tracked, right, with a promotional code. There's a unique code every single drop. We saw incredible lift in terms of, you'd see branded search, like here's, and then whoop, huge spike when this thing drops. And then it trails out for about maybe 20 days or something like that. Then you have another drop and another spike. And what happens with the brand is that they, if you're looking for ways to grow branded search, well, it's the reach, right? So now you're dropping like hundreds of thousands of units to the right people. And unlike Facebook and Instagram and other, types of, prospecting, online, here with it's not just the catalog, it's, tapping into co-ops, right? Epsilon, Experian, tapping in all the co-ops. So they know exactly what pair of jeans Andrew bought, at what store and when, and how old he is, and, where he shops, and what, imagine what the credit bureaus have on you. So then you take that data and that's your list, and you mesh that up with your buyer. Hopefully you have to know who your buyer is, but if you do, very successful. Took that same tactic, now applied to alcohol. And we dropped, where is it? I was just talking about this earlier today. This. So we dropped this. And then we're now not only dropping hundreds of thousands of pieces, but we are inserting them into every box that comes out, which is another tactic for pretty much all the DTC brands are not only, doing product mailing, catalog mailing, plus dropping into every single box. So as a brand impression, it's amazing. From a creative standpoint, it's the same creative we're shooting for our PDPs, for the for all the marketing assets, Facebook ads and Google ads. So it seems to be the greatest tactic I've seen over the last 2-3 years for any, I would say, a little bit more luxury, a direct-to-consumer brand. And you're seeing them, and if you're getting this in the mail, but I'm getting from all the brands you would, and then the next evolution after that is television, right? So a little bit more expensive.
Well, it's interesting, we absolutely mailbox uncluttered. I somehow signed up through, I don't remember what it was, maybe it was a backup from National Geographic. Been a fan my whole life, and that magazine comes. I think it came with like a Real Simple subscription as well. And those magazines kick around my apartment for months. It used to be, you had 10 million magazines, you'd get rid of them as soon as the new one came out, but now they kick around. So I see that. I'm curious, and I think we're probably roughly contemporaries. I grew up with, Patagonia, LL Bean, J. Crew catalogs. That's what every quarter they come out, you'd dog-ear the pages, you'd run through them, you'd go to your parents or whatever, you'd save up money, you'd get that fleece or whatever it was, or that ski jacket that you loved. I'm curious when you're let's talk about the naked cashmere first, because I think Reserve Bar is different because there's some age restrictions there.
Age challenge, but yes.
Yeah. How are you targeting our millennials and Gen Z folks engaging with catalogs, or have you sort of targeted based on
that particular brand? It skews, a little bit older, more affluent. But I mean, there's, it's worn by that brand in particular, has huge traction amongst, celeb audience, Gigi Hadid, Selena Gomez, so it resonates with all different women. It's mostly women, but still a decent amount of men, buying too. The targeting is what I was saying. It's the secret is co-op. I mean, there's no industry secret. Anybody that's doing, direct mail is taking data, meshing it up with cooperative data, and going way deeper into the prospecting mode. So instead of like targeting people that may buy cashmere because that's what their behavior shows you on Facebook, you're actually targeting people that did buy cashmere or these jeans or these shoes. So you can match.
So when you say co-op and co-op data, can you go into that a little bit deeper for folks?
It gets there's a certain point where my knowledge base on this caps out, and I would refer to experts like Bilardi Wong, who's a partner. But when you go into a store and you buy at wherever you buy, Saks or Macy's or Bloomingdale's, wherever you buy, and you use your credit card, they own you. So every single outside of PII, I see everything about Andrew. All your purchase history, all your things. So I know what product you buy, what, every household data, how many kids you have. You can see all that data. Think about what Epsilon or Experian or any of these guys know, everything, right? You take that data, you're basically renting that, you're sending that off. The companies, you have to share your data into the co-op. In order to market to the co-op, you have to, agree to give your data into the co-op. But all the brands do these types of, agree to do that. And it works better for everybody because, a lot of this stuff is non-competitive, right? If you wear a certain pair of shoes, you may buy a certain sweater. If you buy a certain sweater, you may buy a certain jacket. So you're all opting into the co-op, and then all that data is shared. And then, you as the let's say that the brand would do the mailing, and then, but through this, entity, you don't see that you're mailing to Kevin Small, but Kevin Small gets it.
Okay.
And then, you're hoping at that to capture me. I'm going to visit the site. I'm probably going to engage with your pop-up from email capture, or, I'm going to capture maybe on Facebook, but I'm engaging. And the proof of it is what I'm saying is we see the brand search and brand traffic lift like a massive spike, coinciding directly with the drop.
So this is not
better and better every drop because you start, milling and refining the data.
So this is not just a retention loyalty play. This is an acquisition play. If you have that co-op data, you're able to do these sort of blind mailers through them to the end address.
Hitting your base, you're still going to hit your house list because it's a no-brainer. And you're hitting your house list, the conversion is great. Just like, the same reason you do branded search. This is like branded search and non-brand, right? For if you're doing paid search, same exact thing. And then you're just pushing down from prospecting down into the branded funnel to grow your customer file. And every year it's been growing, and I've had brands, I think Naked started with one. There's a case study on these guys online. It's amazing. But they, started with one. Now they're doing 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, it's really like, once you get into it, it works. I know brands that are doing it every month. I mean, I'm getting stuff from Untuckit, from Tommy John, from some of these brands you see on TV, like Mack Weldon, all the time.
I hear Mack Weldon on the radio all the time.
All the time, right? So it's radio. I think radio is going to be very big for 21, 22. It started to be very big this year. Television is certainly huge. Just it's a cost issue, right? So good place to get your feet wet if you're a brand. Certainly with direct mail, and you just can't be afraid to to hit your house list is the easy part. To get into the prospecting part is where the ROAS is a little lower, but overall it's lifting your whole.
I'm curious, is radio effective in 2020 when most people? I mean, I shouldn't shop for my own pockets, as they say, but I listen to the radio when in my car. If I'm home, I don't listen to the radio, and if I'm not in my car, which I'm not very frequently anymore, I'm not listening to the radio. So, have you seen any impact on radio advertising?
Yeah, I think it's been, different markets, right? Like Florida, I mean, we've been, I think California, we've been a little bit more in our cars, and you're still like, I think radio is very effective. I mean, there's terrestrial, satellite, and then now there's even podcasts. Podcasts are becoming extremely effective as well.
Yeah.
But, unlike a lot of the other media buys, like, you hear these same brands, over and over again, right? It takes like 9 or 10 times, statistically, I think, to have like a brand impression on radio, right? Over and over again, month over month. So if it weren't working, they would stop. It's clearly working for these guys. But you can't look at your whole. I don't think any of these brands that are doing this, doing radio, doing TV, doing catalog, doing digital, are looking at everything siloed. It's all like sort of 360, right? And it's important to sort of layer your drops or if you're pumping out your radio spots and your catalog's dropping. It's I wouldn't break it up. I would make sure that I'm dropping all in parallel, because
Shock and awe.
yeah, well, I don't know if it's shock and awe. It's just like there's like I said, there's a direct correlation between when you drop, and if you're not dialed up enough on the brand search in AdWords, then you're hurting yourself. So you have to make sure that you coincide all that.
Have you played around at all with some of the sort of the social advertising, whether it's WeChat, Snapchat? I mean, Facebook's been around for a while, so is Google, or Google Ads and stuff. But Snapchat in particular, I'm curious, because I just was talking with them and had a very interesting demo of some of the new stuff they've got going.
Several of the brands have started to dabble into TikTok this year.
Yeah.
TikTok had a little bit of a tough time with political ramifications, but started to dabble. I mean, it's definitely younger. Snap. Some of the beauty brands have gotten into
Well, what better? I mean, when you talk about how websites have sort of the try it on for cosmetics, where you can actually take your own picture and have the makeup rendered on your face,
right.
You can have these lenses on Snapchat. I mean, it's sort of the perfect fit for beauty, right?
For beauty, I think it's great. YouTube for beauty is great. Any type of any brand that's got heavy video content, tutorial type content, YouTube and any of these video centric mediums are great. Still the dollars are flowing into Facebook and Instagram, but I've seen a huge rise this year actually in shopping. This has been truly the year of PLAs now, Google Shopping, for pretty much every brand. And, we were doing it for years and years, but this is the year, and the SERP results are so heavily focused, especially on mobile, on shopping, that if you're not in that space, you're really, you're losing share. And all the brands that have both wholesale and DTC who are, seeing themselves now getting eclipsed, in the shopping space, right, by their retail partners. We saw a lot of that this year, especially heavied up during, it always gets like intense during, Cyber Week, but we were starting to see that, especially during the pandemic, because what other choice did these retailers have but to level up there?
Yeah.
So you started to see Neiman's, Nordstrom, and Revolt. Every one of these guys went crazy in PLAs. So it's super important for brands to sort of maintain their position, maintain as much dominance as they can afford, because it's not, if someone's clicking on the PLA, the shopping ad for your brand, and they land on, the multi-brand retailer site, they could easily go to another product. So you're kind of, if you're not playing in that space hard, you're missing that impression. That's been a big tactic this year.
What I think we touched on this at one point, but what are your thoughts on, certainly in your space, on things like partnerships to help drive that engagement, drive that bi-directional traffic? One thing I think of was I walked by a liquor store a few months ago, and they had the White Walker, right? The Johnny Walker sort of Game of Thrones brand. So what are you seeing in that space?
Well, I don't get too much involved with that on the brand side, but I mean, I think partnerships in terms of collabs, were very big this year, and going to continue to be big because everybody's looking for new audience. I mean, when you're doing collab, I had some spirits brands do partnerships with Open Table and Kayak.
Okay.
And Open Table and Kayak, because of the pandemic, obviously weren't booking as many, hotels and restaurant bookings. So they opened up their marketing outreach to spirits companies. And now, so several brands that I work with got involved with this, and it's been really successful. So now imagine you could target a consumer that, visits 4-star hotels in Mexico. Well, ding, 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 tequila, like now you can target that consumer. And so we're always looking for new channels. I mean, every single brand I look with is looking for great, but they have to be super targeted, good partnerships, collaborative in the sense that, hopefully there's a win on both sides, so that specifically was one that I think was really great this year.
Yeah. Well, it's also pretty great for those collabs because you can actually, unlike pre-COVID where someone would walk into a liquor store, buy, White Walker, you never knew who they were, what they did, they paid cash, whatever it was. There was no connection, multi-channel. You have all that data now because everybody's shopping online, but they're shopping for all these collaborations online. So you actually have justification and data that will help you understand how to pivot your marketing tactics going forward. So that's
for alcohol, for whether it's a craft brands or large suppliers, the number one thing is the data, right?
Yeah.
Short of PII, they, not to get deep in the weeds of alcohol, but like the way it works here is a 3-tiered system, right? So, supplier, distributor, retailer, you. Suppliers typically don't have any interaction, as you were saying, between what's happening at Bob's liquor store. And if you walk in, if you pay cash, you know nothing. But here you would see there's a guy, he's 40 something, he's in New York, he bought this, they can drill down to who their customer is, and hopefully they can take that data and then share that with all their on-premise teams and the retail teams. So it's huge for the alcohol industry, this data.
So I guess one last sort of set of questions. When we get into subscription, loyalty, rewards, what are your sort of thoughts across that, and in alcohol and otherwise, and what's going on in the market today?
We're going to be rolling out subscription for the alcohol client I mentioned in 21. For beauty, it's everything. I think, for beauty, retention and loyalty and subscription all go hand in hand. Replenishment. I mean, I think we all saw that with our own behavior. I, for the first time, who order a lot online, started ordering cases of Fiji and Evian, right? Just like every week, I was like getting cases and cases and cases. Why? Because they ran out in the supermarket, right? So once I learned that behavior, now I just get it. Now I'm not going to schlep out and get, carry 3 cases of water home. So I think that a lot of people this year, specifically with the pandemic, were forced into these sort of subscription models in a forced adoption, and now have taken to it. And so I set that thing up on Amazon with my water delivery, and that's it. Week over week, I get my water, never have to think about that. And I started to see that same behavior. We're seeing with alcohol, a little bit less than water, but, definitely a trend towards beauty, replenishment and beauty. Fear of running out of your favorite product is awful, right?
Well, not just the running out, I suppose, but it is, because when you see it running out, you may use less, right? You might not grab that last water bottle in your fridge for that moment. So the merchants are selling less because people are trying to make things go further potentially because they don't know that there's one coming next week. Whereas if they know, oh, tomorrow's my delivery, shoot, I'll drink 6 waters today because it's coming tomorrow,
Right.
and increase sales. I got the the Quip toothbrush. You're familiar with the Quip toothbrush? Which is one of the best user experiences online I've ever had. The mobile experience is phenomenal. If you haven't shopped it, shop it. It's very cool. Not a client of ours, just.
Did you hear about it on radio?
I did, yeah. GetQuip.com on the radio. Absolutely on the radio.
So then the radio worked.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And if I didn't have that, the toothbrush head coming every 3 months, like I'd probably be on the same toothbrush head I got a year ago.
Right. Well, the razor business, same thing. I think, the razor business, I'm sure with the pandemic, much harder hit, right? Because people weren't shaving. People
Shaved
were
6 times in the past 8 months or something like
right,
that.
exactly. But you're not going to skip brushing your teeth. So I figured
Right.
that was a good one.
No.
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about like just trying different mediums. I think that's, to me, like the ultimate for 21, 22 is don't be afraid to try these other outlets. A lot of the clients that have words, catalog, they had, oh, it's so old school, but it's not. It's not. And it seems to be exactly how people are shopping right now. And people were at home, right? So, I was traveling for the last 20 years of my life pre-pandemic, right? Every week, back and forth, New York, LA, right? Now, I would get my mail every day. What else are you going to do? You go out, walk the dog, you get your mail. You never went to the mailbox. So now I think it's like a golden opportunity. At least for the next 6 months, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then you'll get back in your car, as you said, and you listen. But the car is more about repetition, just drop. And the mail is, powerful piece. Has to be, the magic is that it has to be an amazing cover. If the cover is not, I'm just like a magazine. If the cover is not amazing, you're not going to you're going to toss it. If the cover is amazing, you're going to start going through it and looking at it.
Yeah. And I think back to the Patagonia catalog that I used to get as a kid. And one of the things I was always just amazed by with them, and they continue to do it, and they continue to do a very good job of it. And I think they were probably one of the pioneers in UGC, right? The pictures in those catalogs were always such and such a climber. It's, on El Capitan wearing whatever product they have to be wearing. It wasn't all Patagonia stuff. It was like one item, and they just highlighted what that was. I always thought it was very cool. So when you talk about catalogs and folks who are, Gen Xers, 40 and above, I'm used to catalog shopping. I'll remember what page it's on, and I'll go back to that page and check it out. Versus sometimes I don't really use wish lists. I don't really use bookmarks to look at products on websites. If I don't buy it at that moment, I probably won't buy it at all. But in a catalog, it's sort of a considered purchase, and you get excited about it, and sort of it's.
I think Belardi would tell you, they have this down to the science. It would tell you it's about 60 to 70 cents. To get a piece like this, 30, 40 pages in your hands, 60 to 70 cents, soup to nuts, right? That's cheap compared to Facebook or Instagram. When you think about like what CPCs cost today, way cheap. And think what a better impression it is.
Yeah.
As an ad impression.
Well, it was sent just
eating banner ad, or like
sent to me. It's a personal experience. You get a catalog, it becomes your property, and you can do what you want with it and dog it.
Of course, there's ones that you don't keep because you're not interested, but hopefully the targeting's been good enough that you are interested. And as you do more and more, mailings, and you see the retention, then you get better and better. Your data gets more refined. But as you widen out, you kind of, you keep going in like this balance of like conversion rate versus, ROAS versus, cost. The trick is not to spend a ton on the mailing. You can do something beautiful, and you don't have to spend like, there's books, there's what's the famous one? Restoration Hardware has, something like this thick. It's a gorgeous book, right? But you're selling product for like 5 to 20 grand. So, it makes sense. But if you're selling, product from $100 to $500, you can't spend that on the book. The economics don't work. So
high level, broad brushing, where would you say is the sort of price point and sort of vertical that you'd say makes sense potentially to start discussing catalogs? Is it, apparel, alcohol, stay away from cosmetics, and anything just sort of
apparel is huge in the $200 to $800, minimum, $150, $200 price point, up to $800. But it depends on I'll be the caveat there. It depends on which brand. If you're Mack Weldon, if you're Tommy John, if you're selling multiples, and your unit cost can be 25, but you're buying 5 pairs of underwear, 4 pairs, and you're dealing with this whole replenishment model, then it's different. I mean, for a typical apparel brand that's selling like one sweater or one piece, then higher AOV helps when you back out of all the cost of the printing cost, the mailing cost of the photography. you want to have a higher AOV.
Okay.
But beauty brands, I mean, you're seeing it. I saw shoes, I saw beauty, furniture. I have a furniture client.
Yes.
Furniture is massive, massive, massive this year because everybody's investing in the home, right? So, we're buying stuff for the house. We're getting them sitting in this chair. I'm sick of this chair. Buy another chair. Same. That's been huge.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's who's always been very strong in the catalog business. But this year, most of the furniture brand I'm working with went up like huge, 4 or 5x.
Wow.
So and now it's again, that's I would say that's the same. It falls in that same bucket as alcohol. It's forced adoption, forced acceptance of high ticket e-commerce. People were buying this average order value of like $1,200 AOV online, sofa never seen, never touched. Incredible, right? So Wayfair stocks up what? This is definitely a sector to tap into.
Yeah, apologies. I got so caught up talking with you, I didn't realize questions were coming. I just posted one of them. How do you measure ROI on print catalog, or do you even bother?
That's a tough question because the days of a traditional match back, it's tough with all these channels flowing at the same time. We for some of the brands I work with, the window is we know the window. So the minute we drop, right, you have your baseline of sort of like where you're trending. If you looked at analytics and you see here's your month and here's your branded search. And then you drop on the 11th and you're dropping over the course of a week. And over the course of that week, you can measure the gap, right, between, what your baseline is and that's your sort of incremental. That's how we typically measure it. For for television, it's within the first minutes of so when a spot is launching and you start to see order volume against your normal baseline, that's what you're looking at. And there's all sorts of tools and technology, TV Squared and all that can measure that sort of incremental lift. But I would encourage you, if you haven't tried it, to try it, but you really got to work with somebody who's got their blank together in terms of the data modeling. And there's only a handful of shops that I work with that I know that are really good at this. Happy to refer you one after this call.
We got some data folks. We got some data folks at Overdose.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Actually, I know you tagged me.
Yeah, he's asking in terms of like for catalog specific. Right?
No, we don't.
Happy with these co-op.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I'll follow up with you, and if you can give me some recommendations, I'd absolutely love to connect with them because we're in the Shopify Magento BigCommerce space. We've got tons of fashion apparel folks and furniture folks and alcohol folks, all the folks that you're referencing. It'd be great to explore that with some of them. So cool. I said, we went a little bit past what I anticipated, so I appreciate you sticking around late on a Friday evening and jumping on a chat with us. It's been great. I'm looking forward to catching up outside of this. Any final thoughts, wisdoms, advice for what's sort of late in the holiday season? Oh, wait, question just popped in.
Okay.
Sorry. Have you played with QR codes in print to stitch into digital acquisition tracking? We're getting real granular.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit more old school, approach. I mean, that used to be a little bit more popular. I don't think people are doing too much of that today.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say we did something. We have something running on one of my furniture sites where we're using QR codes to track online to in-store. So this particular client has their e-com in 20 stores, and so you go to a PDP. You say, he's like, I'm interested in this sofa. Click here for the special offer, and or to bring to read. So you fill out your email. You get a QR code, with the special offer. You go into it tells you what your nearest store is. You go into your nearest store. The sales rep scans the code and it can identify the offer. This is like holy grail stuff to be able to track, online to offline, which is extremely difficult, right? So that's where I could see a good use of QR code. If you wanted to track from website to body walking in the store, and so they browse it on the site, and which is a lot of furniture anyway. It's like window shopping, browsing, discovery, dimensions, and then walking in to try it and buy it. That's QR code could be great there.
Cool. So sorry, I cut you off before. Any sort of in the next 3 weeks we have before the holidays, or 2 weeks, I don't know what date is anymore. Any things that merchants should be looking at, considering collecting data to look at in January?
Free priority ship.
Free priority ship
this week until whatever your shipping cutoff is run. If you can afford it, if you can bake it into the fee structure, free priority ship, because we're getting to the point of shipping cutoffs, right? So after the 18th, 19th, it's kind of be done. If you have a sale going on, newness on e-com is like everything today, right? So you want to make sure that at least you're not maybe you can drip out new product and weave it into your current promotion if you're promoting through the end of the calendar year, so that everybody's not seeing the same product over the next 2 weeks. So save some juicy stuff for maybe the 25th, 26th, or the 30th. At least is something new. We did this with another brand last year, so a big spike because people were sort of like waiting to buy. I think this year is going to be very different. What I would say is that, there's normally this lull, after the 1920th, it kind of flattens. I'm not sure it's going to happen this year because I don't think anybody's really going anywhere, largely compared to last year. So maybe and everybody's gotten accustomed to waiting for their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone sees a great offer, they may take that offer on the 29th and the 30th. So I don't know if there's going to be such a dip. I'm not, in 2 or 3 brands I'm looking at this week, I'm seeing it very strong. Like I'm not seeing any chance of that dip. So newness and priority ship. I can't think of anything else. I wouldn't experiment with the new ad medium in this game. But
do you think people are actually going to spend more this year because they're not spending on traveling because they feel perhaps a bit not guilty, but that they may not be able to spend Christmas with their extended family, that they sort of parlay that into being more?
I only speak for, either myself or some other, I've done a ton of gifting this year.
Yep.
And the reason I did a ton of gifting is I wasn't able to travel, right? So, I didn't have that chance to have that business dinner with my clients. So this is like the perfect moment for gifting, especially if you want to maintain a relationship. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of depression spending right now. I'm sure there's people sitting at home saying, I deserve this, I want this. And they have that, in a certain, price point. They have that money sitting there burning a hole, a hole in their pocket. So they want to spend it and they feel that they deserve it. So we're seeing that on typically on the luxury side.
Yeah.
And I think there's people that are just, that are experimenting into the new sort of casual apparel. I bought more sweats this year than I bought in the last, 7 years. So really interesting. Hey, Amit.
Yeah, he's just thanking for the tips and tricks. No, all right, very cool. Kept you way longer than I said I would. It was just really fascinating. So I appreciate you going down the rabbit hole with me. Awesome. Have a fantastic weekend. And we'll catch up next week or something.
Happy to be part of this. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thanks very much. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.